So November this winter is actually heating up as we have insane new games announced, plus December, guys, is shaping up to potentially be one of the best Game Pass months this year. I'm Sonny, your host at Xbox Central, and we're going to start this off with a day one Game Pass release title that I feel some gamers might overlook in Pentiment. This has released today and it's from Obsidian Entertainment. This is the makers of Fallout New Vegas and Outer Worlds. Set in the 16th century Germany, Pentiment is what I describe as like a detective thriller mixed with a pretty unique storybook art style that really brings this murder mystery to life. Here you play as a young artist who's been caught up in a murder involving a dear friend. While you're trying to uncover this scandal and doing a full work of investigation and coming up with your own conclusion, the town really seemingly doesn't want to talk about it and really wants this entire story buried. You're going to be making decisions and coming up with your own conclusions to uncover this mystery that will span across a couple decades. So far, the game has literally launched to some of the best reviews of any game this year, with some publications giving it a perfect review score, and is already launched to a Metacritic score of 86, guys. So that really speaks to the quality that Obsidian Entertainment has delivered with this unique game. You can also expect around about 15 to 20 hours of gameplay with quite a bit of replayability to tackle the story in different ways. And the best part about all this, guys, it's available on Game Pass right now on consoles, cloud, and PC. So if you guys are familiar with games like Limbo, I think you're going to be right at home with one of the newest day one Game Pass title releases in Somerville. Here you play as a father who's on a journey to find his family and reunite with them, all in the wake of an alien invasion that has led to Earth to pretty much be in complete and utter shambles. Now, if you guys are not familiar with this type of game, it's what I would describe a title where its full storytelling is completely visual. That means it has you piecing the story with what you think is happening as you play. The game is filled with meaningful interactions with the environment. There's lots of physics-based puzzles, but the puzzles aren't too bad if you're like me and you struggle with these types of games. Somerville is also a pretty quick adventure as it clocks in around 4 hours to complete the story, but I would say it's chock full of mystery and wonder, and it's a game I recommend if you're looking for something quick but very interesting. This is now available today on consoles, cloud, and PC. So Ghostlore is an action RPG inspired by the likes of old school ARPGs like Diablo 2 and Titan Quest, bringing in that top-down action gameplay. It has a very detailed character customization loop with a multi-class system, an insane amount of items you're going to be looting, and procedurally generated maps. This early preview title, meaning it's early access, has really a lot of content to dive into. This is going to hit Game Pass on November 17th on PC. Our next game on the list is Norco. This is a point and click game with some really awesome pixel art visuals. It also has a pretty deep story. The game puts you in the shoes of a young man who's trying to find his brother who went missing after their mother's tragic death. In doing so, though, he has to explore different areas of a very shady city. There's honestly a lot much more to this game than really that meets the eye. The further you get into the game, the more mysteries you're going to unravel about past events, technology, nature, and just a lot more. Norco's an excellent blend of complex stories, stunning pixel art, and challenging puzzles that are really going to keep you immersed throughout your time with the game. Recently, this was delayed for consoles and was only available on PC for Game Pass, but it finally sees the release here for Xbox consoles and the cloud in just a few days. So the game Dune Spice Wars is set to hit Game Pass here soon. Set in the Dune universe from Frank Herbert, the first game actually released all the way back in 1992, but today developer Shiro Games brings this 4X real-time strategy to life here, where the fight for spice is going to be your main objective. And spice is critical because it extends life, it makes you intellectually sharper, and it makes interstellar travel possible. And it's why you'll play as one of several factions duking it out for control of this spice with what I'd say is a very deep political system. It's mixed with wars, bribes, backroom deals, and you're going to be micromanaging your people all in real time. Guys, this is a pretty deep, in-depth strategy title that has released 2 really good positive user reviews since it came out earlier this year, and it sees a Game Pass release on PC on November 17th. Our next game is another day one Game Pass title in Lapin. This is a game about brave rabbits trying to find a home after being dumped in a park for abandoned pets. This is a pure 2D platformer where you overcome obstacles while using precise controls. Lapin will be available on November 17th on consoles, cloud, and PC. In yet another day one Game Pass release, we have Gungrave G.O.R.E, and you're put in the shoes of a deadly gunslinger who was resurrected with one purpose: to stop the Raven clan, who is spreading a dangerous drug across the world. And essentially your mission is absolute destruction as you mow down hordes of enemies with what I'd calls a pretty unique and badass weapon. Gungrave G.O.R.E is a game that isn't trying to be anything deep, but it gives you a really intense action shooter all about brutalizing enemies in gorgeous visuals and real-life inspired locations from Southeast Asia. So far, the game has about 12 hours of gameplay, and for me, this is one of my more anticipated Game Pass releases this month. Expect to see it on November 22nd on consoles, cloud, and PC. So in what I would say is a surprise edition this November, Insurgency Sandstorm's a team-based tactical FPS that really does an amazing job at giving good balance between pretty realistic mechanics down to how the guns are used, to bringing in some very high-octane player versus player fun that you get in close-quarter combat gameplay. Taking place in a fictional conflict in the Middle East, you can expect deadly ballistics, destructive artillery, and really guys, some of the best audio in a warlike setting in a video game to date. The game does feature full character and weapon customization, several maps and game modes, and a title that overall promises to bring some really intense player versus player action. Insurgency Sandstorm drops on the 29th on Game Pass on consoles and the cloud. Now, Soccer Story is a brand new day one Game Pass title that's best described as an adventure RPG, which I have to say is kind of odd considering it's a game about soccer, but not in the normal way you'd expect, as a magical soccer ball has dubbed you the savior of the game itself, and of course, you must restore the world back to peace and harmony. This is a full-blown story-based RPG with a cast full of quirky characters, rogue refs, puzzles, and secrets to discover, and ironically, a game that reminds me personally of the old Mario Tennis DS games, only in soccer form. And maybe it's a little more fantasy-like than those titles, but it also features a full 4-player local multiplayer matches that if you guys want that more traditional soccer experience, you can have it. Either way, this game's been on my radar for about a year now, and I have to say I'm super excited to see it on Game Pass when it launches on November 29th on consoles, cloud, and PC. So a huge November title is the much anticipated Warhammer 40k Darktide. This is an action-packed, gore-filled first-person shooter that lends itself heavy into the multiplayer co-op experiences. Now, Warhammer Darktide continues the same formula as the previous Vermintide game that pits you and your team against hordes of bloodthirsty monsters. Each character in this game is fully customizable, and upgrading your gear and choosing a playstyle that you enjoy the most will definitely be key. The combat system, if you guys can't tell from the gameplay, it's just incredible. It's action-packed, it's visually gorgeous, and this is easily one of those games that you can absolutely lose yourself in it for hours. So far, people who have been playing this in betas have had nothing but praise, and I'm glad, guys, it's finally coming for Game Pass for PC on November 30th. For those wondering, the console version was delayed, but it is coming at a future date, and I'll keep you guys up to date with that information. With that, let's go ahead now and take a look at games coming this December for Game Pass. December, guys, is going to be wild, right in time for Christmas. Let's start this off with a huge title in Battlefield 2042. This will be joining Game Pass. We don't have a specific date yet, but it's going to be coming with Season 3. We could see it sometime in November or potentially early December. Either way, there's quite a few things that are different this time around for this game. EA plans to bring back classes very soon with update 3.2. There's also major overhauls to some of the game's popular maps, and overall, it sounds like they're listening to the complaints, and even today, I have to say the game's a lot more fleshed out than it was when it launched a year ago. This multiplayer first-person shooter is still one of the most popular franchises to date. I personally have enjoyed it myself, but with these big updates coming, I do really think it's going to be a great time to get into this one, especially since it's going to be hitting Game Pass, and personally, I can't wait to play it again. But with that, we do have a new game coming in, Hello Neighbor 2, hitting this December, a stealth horror game about spying and uncovering the secrets your creepy neighbors are hiding in their homes. This time though, you play as an investigative journalist uncovering the mystery of the town Ravenbrook that not only has one neighbor that's up to no good like in the first game, but this one has several of them that you're going to be engaging with. If you guys are not familiar with this franchise, you essentially break in and go about trying to uncover the shady dealings, but when you're sneaking around, the residents are going to try and stop you. But the key thing here is that the AI is controlled by a sophisticated network AI developed for this game, and it tries to learn your patterns of doing things like hiding and setting traps, and tries to actively avoid those and tries to stop you at all costs. It's essentially trying to counter your moves, so you don't want to do the same things over and over again. This is a really unique title and franchise, one that doesn't require you to play the last games in order to to get into this franchise, and this will land on Game Pass on December 6th. So another day one Game Pass title headed our way is Chained Echoes, the SNES inspired RPG set in a fantasy world where dragons are just as common as you're gonna see piloted mech suits running around, featuring a 16-bit style pixel graphics, music inspired by the old classic RPGs, turn-based combat, and a story about a group of heroes looking to stop a war between 3 different kingdoms. You have really, guys, a lot to dive into with this one. Chain Echoes has about 40 hours of playtime, and if you guys are just a fan of the classic RPGs, I really think this is going to be a game for you. This is set to release on Game Pass on December 8th. And so with that, we come to our last game, and with what might be one of the most unique gaming experiences to come out in past years, let alone in 2022, High on Life's a game that, putting simply, guys, is hilarious as heck. And yet another day one Game Pass release. This is a first-person shooter, single-player story-based game that has non-stop comedy and has you partnering up with talking charismatic guns, all in a bid to stop a threatening alien cartel trying to use humans as drugs as they invade Earth for that sole purpose. What really sticks out though, guys, is this game's humor and hilarious cast of characters.
Bet you're just as nice and squishy on the inside as the rest of them. Let me at her, bounty hunter!
Wow, we're having our first real boss fight together!
I mean, this is a game full of foul-mouthed aliens, Unreal Engine-powered gorgeous visuals, tons of side quests and dialogue. Even upgrading your skills and weapons is enjoyable. High on Life will end up being one of the highest quality titles to hit Game Pass in 2022. And the really awesome part about this, we're not going to have to wait too long. This one hits on December 13th. With that, as always, we have our games leaving Game Pass this November 30th. I'm going to go ahead and throw those games up on the screen. As always, you guys can purchase these games with a 20% discount to have them in your library. But if you guys want a list of the best games to play on Game Pass, check out the video on the screen.